Store closures always make it to the news, as if they are the most important event at a company. However, when you work in the industry for a long time, you will come to know that store closures are just part of doing business. Over the last few years, I've opened many stores for different brands in different countries, and I also had to close a lot of stores. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the most common reasons why store closures happen. The first reason store closures happen is overexpansion. One of the great things about retail businesses is that they are easy to grow, simply by replicating the store into more locations. Some companies, however, when they go through the expansion phase, they either overdo it by opening too many locations, or they do some mistakes in due diligence and open some stores at wrong places. In his book Onward, Howard Schultz, the CEO of Starbucks, said that at some point in Starbucks' life, it has expanded so aggressively that it has led to two problems. On one hand, the stores started cannibalizing each other and becoming unprofitable, but more on that in a minute. On the other hand, with rapid expansion, the new teams were not trained properly, and the stores were losing their soul, as he put it. What he meant by that was that the standards at the store started to suffer due to rapid expansion and poor training for the new joiners. This has prompted him to return back to his role as CEO and started closing some of the stores to solve this problem. Now let's talk about cannibalization, which is a common side effect for retail expansion. When a company opens new stores, the idea is that each new location will bring in fresh new revenue. However, in many cases, the new location is close enough to an older one that it starts taking some of the customers from the old location. When this overlap is high enough, the new location is not bringing in new revenue and new customers, and at the same time, it's bringing more overhead in terms of rent, employees, and other operating costs. This, of course, affects the P&L of the entire business and might lead to losses at one or even both locations. When this happens, usually the company needs to make a decision on which location to keep and which one to close down, and thereby consolidate these two locations into one. Another reason for store closure is mall-related issues. I had to close a retail store because the mall wasn't living up to its expectations. As part of the expansion process, retailers go through a detailed due diligence process to open a new retail store. Part of this process is making financial projections on how the store is expected to perform and whether or not the rent set by the landlord is justified by the expected sales per square foot. After opening, the picture gradually starts to materialize, and we get to know if this mall will perform or not. Usually we don't expect to break even from the first year, but growth trends in the store sales and its traffic give us an idea of what's to come. From my experience, the best malls are the ones where the operator puts in the effort to bring in traffic to the stores and maintains very high standards of operation, which makes the mall attractive for both retailers and shoppers. Some malls, however, don't do that. When this happens, retailers start to get out of the mall, and when a lot of them go, the mall starts to fail. I've also had to close a store at a mall where the standards were very high, but the rent was not in line with the traffic the mall was getting. Retail is a numbers game, and when the numbers don't work out and landlords are not flexible enough to help us make it work, we just have to leave and close the stores. The next reason why retail stores close is population and demographic changes in the area. Over the years, people start to shift their locations for many reasons related to jobs, climate, taxes, and so on. This shift in population usually brings with it store closures in the places where people are leaving and store openings in places where people are moving to. Sometimes the shift is in the demographics of the area. For example, an area where people are aging and the younger population is getting less by the day will also experience lower consumption levels and hence will become unprofitable for a lot of retail brands. The other reason is recession. Due to the nature of our credit-based economy, a cycle of boom and bust keeps repeating over and over again every few years, where some years see rapid growth, but then eventually the credit bubble bursts and a brief recession happens, usually for a number of years. One of the ways retailers cope with this is by consolidating and closing some stores during recession and then returning back to growth mode after it ends. So whenever an economic recession starts, it brings with it some store closures. Check out our article on managing retail businesses during a recession for more on that. Other reasons for store closures are business or brand related. This could be a business that was facing financial troubles, or it could also be that the brand itself is no longer relevant in the market. due to shifting tastes and consumer preferences, which leads to shutting down the business for good. If you've made it this far in the video, you might want to check out a case study that we have in members area about a mall that was getting a lot of traffic from customers with high purchasing power, and yet a lot of brands at the mall had to close the stores. This is particularly useful for anyone doing due diligence for new store openings. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.